Welcome back, everybody, to In the Loop with Tom Durant. Watch this, episode 60, 5-year anniversary, 5-year birthday. Thank you for journeying with me. Maybe you've come on board in the last 60 months, but I'm glad you're with us. Again, my objective is to bring leadership content, leadership growth, and sustainable adjustments to grow an apostolic 21st century church and maintain what the book of Acts teaches and preaches. And so that's kind of been my passion, my vision for 60 months. And I'm excited we can keep journeying. I'm especially excited today about this episode because I get to sit down with a very special guest. This is only my third guest in 5 years. It's my daughter, Ashley. I'm excited. She's going to join me, and we're going to dive into the topic that challenges the way we often think about leadership. Her title, she'll get into it. The Silent CEO, the Power of a Quiet Leader. Today, Ashley will explore what it looks like to lead from a place of quiet strength. Sounds like an oxymoron, does it not? They contradict one another. Quiet strength, not really, but she'll unpack it. So you don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to fit into any mold. And when there's a leader in the room, every personality is present. So I just say, welcome to my daughter. Welcome, Ashley. Welcome to In the Loop.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to my father for allowing me to be a part of his podcast. And hello to everybody on the other side. Today, I do want to talk to you today about the silent CEO, the power of a quiet leader. Oftentimes, when we think of leaders, we think of loud, extroverted, they're very charismatic, they're sanguine. And as I'm saying this, you're probably thinking of leaders right now that fit that mold, and they walk in and they take control of the room. But that is not always the case. There are some incredible leaders out there that are quiet, yet they're effective. And some traits of a quiet leader might be they're good listeners, thoughtful decision-making. They lead by example and not volume. And one person that I think of as a quiet leader in my personal life would be my mom, Yolanda Durant. We are very different in our leadership styles. I have a saying about us that I often quote is that I will tell you how to get to heaven, and she will show you how to get to heaven. See, she's not one to speak at a conference. She's not one to demand the room when she walks in, but she is the one that will take you to coffee. She is the one that will let you cry on her shoulder, and she will remind you in her sweet, quiet way that you matter. And that's just somebody personal in my life. But if we go to a biblical standpoint, look at Peter and Jesus, for examples. Peter is over here cutting off people's ears and cursing people when they try to say he's a follower of Jesus, and he's getting angry, all while Jesus is staying silent when they're asking him questions of who he is when they arrested him. And they're making fun of him, and he's quiet and he's silent. But both of these leaders, Peter and Jesus, they're both effective, both got the job done. Is one right over the other? Well, my answer would be no to that. And same for people. We deliver in different ways. We look at Rosa Parks, for example. She was a quiet leader. All she did was not give up her seat. She wasn't demanding attention. She wasn't causing a scene. She was calm. She was quiet, yet she was effective, and we talk about her today. So here are some strengths of a quiet leader. And let me just say and interrupt myself, quiet doesn't mean weak. We think if people aren't passionate and busting down the doors for what we believe or the group that they're leading, then maybe they're just not the right person for the job. Maybe they don't have a backbone. Maybe they don't have what it takes. But here are the strengths for a quiet leader. You have influence through presence, not position. You have influence through presence, not positions. You don't need a title. You don't need recognition. You don't need to be in charge, but you are. So your influence comes from the strong relationships you build. It comes from showing up every time, all the time. You have influence through your presence, not your position. Another one might be creating safe environments for others to lead. This is what I love, is that you don't need your name on everything. You're allowing other people to shine. You're allowing other people to take the lead. You're allowing other people to get the credit. And the quiet leader, you are their support. I don't need to have my name on everything. I don't need to say, hey, this was my idea or this was my thought. No, you take the credit for it, and I'll support you from behind. Another one is listening is a leadership superpower. You actually know how to listen. I think so many times as loud leaders, and I would probably classify myself as a loud leader, so it's a little hilarious that I'm probably doing this, but I think that it's also needed and brings awareness. And sometimes us loud leaders will tend to talk so much. We want to hear our own voices, and we want to label it as vision casting, and we're pushing church growth, and we're pushing all these things, but really we just want to hear ourselves. And really we just think we're the smartest person in the room sometimes. But as quiet leaders, their listening is actually a superpower in leadership. Another one might be making decisions based off of conviction and not attention. Making decisions based off of conviction and not attention. You lead your team, your church, your company with conviction and not to get attention. You sit with your decisions. You pray about your decisions. You know that you have to make a decision because you are in charge and you are the leader, but it doesn't pressure you into making one right then, right there at the moment. You are completely fine waiting and thinking on it and contemplating on it and praying on it because that's what a quiet leader does. On the opposite side, loud leaders may be like, well, my people need an answer. My people need direction. I've got to come up with something. But quiet leaders will say, yes, I do need to come up with something, but it doesn't have to be right now. I want to sit with it before I give an answer. Now, on the flip side, with every personality and leadership trait, there's also challenges to everything that is a strength for us. So challenges for quiet leaders you might be facing misunderstanding from others. You could be seen as passive or you're disengaged. People don't understand how you're in the position you are because you're not like most people in your role. People can think that you're rude or disconnected because you're kind of more on the introverted side, you're more quiet. Maybe oftentimes you get overlooked in group settings because you're not making a scene. You're not coming into the room, the life of the party, demanding the room. Your voice isn't loud or boisterous, so you might get overlooked. These are just some challenges of being a quiet leader. Another one would be balancing humility with assertiveness. You are constantly trying to be more outgoing. It's funny because my dad always says, I would probably label him more of an introvert, but with pastoring and all that, he labels himself as a self-made sanguine. I'm a self-made sanguine. I didn't come that way, but I've had to learn to step out of my comfort zone, and I've had to learn to connect with people, and I've had to learn to be outgoing, and I've had to learn to be a sanguine. So finding that and actually being intentional about working on that could be a challenge sometimes, because when you are an introvert and you are more quiet, leading can drain you sometimes. Being around a lot of people can be exhausting to you mentally or emotionally or just physically because you're just constantly stepping outside of your comfort zone. And sometimes that could be draining if you have to do it for long periods of time. Another one would be overcoming internal doubt. Am I good enough? Am I making a difference? And you might even compare yourself to a lot of people who you consider great leaders because you're looking at, hey, this is a great leader. This is an amazing leader. And when you look at them, they're loud leaders. They're ones that come in and take charge. They're ones that people naturally follow because they are extroverts and they have charisma. And so you look at that and you say, well, people like that. People want that, but I'm not that. And so you begin to doubt yourself to wonder if you're even good enough to make a difference. And these are just challenges of being a quiet leader. So you think, okay, I've got my strengths and I've got my weaknesses. Now what? What do I do now? How do I thrive as a quiet leader? And I'm going to give you a couple points here. How to thrive as a quiet leader. Own your strengths. Own your strengths. And a lot of us know our strengths and a lot of us know our weaknesses, but we just know them. There's so many times that we don't own them. Knowing them is one thing and owning them is another. So don't try to mimic loud leadership styles. It would only make you feel like leading is a task and it's work and it's uncomfortable. So when I first started teaching cycle, I teach cycle at a local gym here. And I remember this is about 5-6 years ago, and I was thinking, how do I, these other instructors that are coming, they really love their style. They really love their classes are full. So obviously what they're doing works. The people are showing up, the people are enjoying it, the people are talking about it. So the way that they do it must be the way it needs to be done. And so I really battled with this because I would teach classes and I would teach cycle, and I would feel every time I'd go in, I'd feel this pressure and I'd feel this stress because I'm thinking, okay, I have to be like the other instructors, or they're not going to enjoy my class, or they're not going to stay, or they're not going to have good feedback, or they just won't get a good workout. And so I was owning that pressure of being like somebody else. And then finally, one day I just said, you know what? I'm putting too much pressure on myself. Going to teach these classes is actually not enjoyable to me. And I just begin to say, I'm going to teach how I teach. I'm going to, in your world, I'm just going to lead how I'm going to lead. I'm me, and I got to do it my way, because if you try to mimic other people, then it becomes pressure and it becomes work. And then you lose your love and your purpose as to why you originally started. Another bullet point for thriving as a quiet leader: build confidence in small, consistent actions. Build confidence in small, consistent actions. Your actions don't have to be over the top. They don't have to be all huge, but you're there building confidence in small, consistent actions. When you have a meeting, you're there and you're early. When you are presenting something, you're there and you're early, and you do it because you've studied for it, you've trained for it, you're ready for it. Those are building confidence in small, consistent actions. Another one, practice visible listening. Show that you're present, show that you care, and show that you want to be there. You want to help. You want the project or the team to succeed. So practice visible listening. Find support systems or mentors who value your style. Your mentors that you have in your life need to know who you are and be okay with that. They don't need to make a quiet leader a loud one, and they don't need to make a loud leader a quiet one. They need to see the value you bring to the team, to the church, to the company, to the pastoral staff, and they need to help you flourish in your style of leadership. So find mentors that know, hey, if you're a quiet leader, I believe in you just how you are. I'm not trying to change who you are. I'm trying to help you perfect what God has given you and to lead from where you are comfortable. Last one here is lead with values, not volume. Lead with values, not volume. Let your values speak in volumes. Be who God has called you to be with confidence, conviction, and compassion. And so if I could tell you one thing today, quiet leader, it would be this: stop doubting yourself. God picked you, now stop picking on you. God picked you, now stop picking on you. He picked you for a reason. He chose you. And sometimes God will pick us, and then we pick ourselves apart as to why we cannot fulfill what God has called us to do. So I want to remind you today, you are enough. Do what God has called you to do in the quiet way that He's called you to do it in. And just to wrap up today's episode, I just want to remind you, quiet leadership is not lesser leadership. God has uniquely gifted you with your personality, your style, and your voice. Whether that voice is loud or whether it's soft, don't waste time trying to be somebody else. Lean into who God has called you to be, because the kingdom needs both Peter-like leadership and Jesus-like leadership. Both bold voices, but gentle guides. Both got the job done, both had the mission, but did it in different ways. If this episode has encouraged you, I encourage you to share it with someone who might need a reminder that quiet doesn't mean weak. And until next time, keep leading with conviction, compassion, and confidence. God bless you.